So, welcome. The session concerns institutional arrangements, policy and finance for fecal sludge management. It's going to be followed after lunch by another session on the same theme that will take the topic further. And I think after this morning's introductory session, it's pretty clear that this is a critical part of what we're here for. But if we want to scale up, if we want to make sustainable the progress that's been happening at city level and at other levels, that one's got to have policies, institutions, and sustainable finance in line for that. So we've got 4 speakers from different contexts, all knowledgeable about some of the recent work that's been happening in this field. And we're going to start with Mbaye Guerrera, who works for Honors in Senegal, a dedicated agency that concentrates on urban sanitation. And he's employed by Honors, but he's also working specifically on a project that they are doing with the Gates Foundation to develop specific options and drive progress on fecal sludge management. So I'm going to ask Mbaye to come to the stage.
We are happy to be here to share Honors' experience on fecal sludge management. The objective is to present some innovative tools on fecal sludge management. In Dakar, we try to improve the working condition of employers, and several tools are developed in this perspective. And we share with you the program funded by the Engineering Foundation for 5 years. And the objective is to improve the working condition of employers and to reduce the cost of the emptying costs. What is the outline of this presentation? In the first time I present the context, talk to you about the program objectives, the expected results, the program activities, and the key results. About the context, we need to know a little bit about the main stakeholders in Senegal. We can say Senegal is one of the African utilities or one of the African countries where we have an office dedicated only on sanitation, on urban sanitation. The Senegal National Sanitation Utility works on sanitation and is the main responsible on sanitation. He works with local municipalities, we work with the other stakeholders in the sector in order to improve the sanitation at the environment. But the rural sanitation is belong to another direction in Senegal. And alongside the government, we have NGOs because we realize that the empty activity is a private one, and the main actors are manual NGOs and technical NGOs. We realize also that municipalities have something to do in the sector because sometimes they have some slight contracts and they help the poor people to access to empty activity. And we have donors like Gates Foundation, like the World Bank, who accompany the country on the fecal sludge or on sanitation development. And the project is located in Dakar. Dakar is the capital city of Senegal, and in Dakar the project concerns Pikine and Guédiawaye, and Pikine and Guédiawaye is the most inhabited place of Dakar. We have 1,200,000 inhabitants in this area. The standard of living is very low because the majority of households earn less than $2 per day. And we can say also that over 75% of households use individual sanitation. Sludge is contained in big luxury, and the average cost of on-site sanitation, mainly big destruction, is very high, 130 USD per year per household. You realize when people earn less than $2 per day, this amount is really money. This picture was taken by Dr. Linda Strande in Dakar between 9 p.m. and 2 p.m. This shows you vacuum trucks have been found at every corner. This shows the large quantity of fecal sludge daily produce in Dakar. Right now we have 1,500 cubic meters per day in Dakar, and we expect in 2030 to collect more than 2,500 cubic meters. This large quantity make essential the implementation of the sustainable fecal sludge management system. The government realized we cannot continue to dump such big amount of fecal sludge in the nature. This is why we realized with the World Bank, the government built several fecal sludge treatment plants in the past in order to take in charge of these pollution. And the main problem is about emptying. Manual emptying is very widespread in Dakar. Because why? It concerns 52% of the population. And why manual emptying is widespread? Because the price, it is not too expensive. The cost is less than half the cost of mechanized discharging. These activities doesn't require any capital equipment, and there is no barrier to entry in these activities. But these activities cause several problems like some negative externalities to surround the neighborhood and health consequences to the structure household. And this picture is an illustration of Dakar emptying trucks. These trucks, we realize, are too old. These trucks are, in fact, second-hand, are both second-hand in Europe after 20 years of life cycle. We realize with such a fleet, nobody can imagine a good emptying fecal sludge management system. That's why we need to do something to improve or to renew this fleet in order to have a good fecal sludge management system. But these systems are too old, but they help a lot because we realize that 50% fewer incidences of diarrhea among children in households using mechanical discharge. We have not to drop these drugs. They help, but we need to renew it. What happened in Senegal? The story began in 1996. And in 1996, the government realized that we have to fight against the marginalization of sanitation in favor of drinking water. All the projects in water and sanitation sector was devoted to drinking water supply. And in 1996, the government decided to create on us a national sanitation utility devoted only on sanitation. And we realized after this day, many investment, many fecal sludge treatment plant or many wastewater treatment plant was built thanks to this new rearrangement. Because I explained a lot when I traveled in India to say new builds are very important, but the most important thing is institutional arrangement. We need to know who is the main responsible of sanitation, who is doing what. This is something very important. It is why the first thing to do is to think about institutional arrangement. And in 2003, thanks to World Bank, a big project called Bakud was implemented in Dakar. And the objective of Bakud was to implement on-site sanitation facilities at the household level. And due to this, thanks to this program, 63,000 of on-site sanitation facilities was built in Senegal. And we realized with such an important facilities, we have to produce too much fecal sludge. And the question is, can we continue to dump this fecal sludge into the nature? That's why the government, with the World Bank, decided to build free fecal sludge treatment plant. And when you come in Senegal, this is the rare African countries where you can find free existing or free functioning fecal sludge treatment plants. And in 2004, we have the first fecal sludge treatment plant in Dakar. And since 2005, the government, on us, the National Sanitation Utility, signed an agreement with the SANDEX, the IABAC, in order to improve the functioning of these technologies, in order to help the government to know how to optimize these new technologies. And in 2006, the commissioning of three fecal are currently functioning in Dakar under ONAS operation till 2012. This fecal treatment plant was operated by ONAS, but we will realize with this gate-funded project, we privatize this operation to the sector, to the private sector. Fecal flood management is a good value chain coming from capture to delivery. And the goal is to make sanitation services safe and sustainable by addressing the failure to effective collection and transport, treat and reduce waste from on-site facilities. What we realize in Africa, when we talk about fecal flood management, people think a lot about facilities and about treatment plants. But we forgot that this system, the private sector is very involved and will have a good place in this chain. It is why our objective is not to focus on a specific segment, but our objective is to focus in the whole value chain in order to conduct activities in each segment of the chain in order to reach the main goal, how to decrease the cost of the emptying activities in Dakar. And what are the main expected results in this project? 200,000 additional persons will practice mechanical dislodging at the end of the project. More than 1 million persons have improved their hygiene condition. The number of households practicing manual emptying will decline from 47% to 30%. This is a big issue. Annual household spending on sanitation evolved from 120 USD in 2012 to 50. We have to decrease by half the price of the emptying cost. This is one goal of this project. We have also to increase the volume of strategic fecal sludge from 2012 to the end of the project. We have also to make possible that at least 270,000 persons in the secondary cities of Senegal have access to the mechanical desludging services. What are the main activities? I'm a little bit talkative and I forgot my name. The main program activities. At the household level, the objective is to develop at least 2 to 3 innovative toilets, technology and service model for flood-prone areas. We realize that in Dakar, 20% of people live in flood-prone areas. For these people, we cannot talk about emptying. We talk about toilets because the flood definitely damaged the on-site facilities in this area. This is why we launched a tender at the international level to find solutions for this area. And we got 2 proposals, one coming from Ghana by Biofilcom, one coming from China, Sunny in order to propose some solution adapted to flood-prone areas. And what we plan to do in this transport segment, the objective is to develop the certification. Everybody can do emptying activity in Senegal if you have your truck. But in this part of our project, we developed some criteria in order to say if you want to do mechanical activities, you have to respect these criteria in order to get the license from the government. Something very innovative, we developed a platform, a call center. Right now, when you want to empty your pit, you have to go in the street in order to find an empty activity. But we build a call center and you use your mobile phone. You go to the Senegal National Sanitation Utility and you say, I want to empty my pit. And the Senegal National Utility, with its platform, make into competition several emptiers. Within this competition, we fight against pollution existing between emptiers, and we arrive to decrease the cost of the emptying cost. We work also to improve the access to investment in emptiers. Emptiers say we cannot access to credit. This is why, thanks to the Gate Foundation, we put a guarantee fund in the bank, and one emptier wants to improve or to renew its fleet, if he go to this bank and get credit without any guarantee. And right now, we got 20 new trucks in Dakar, thanks to this program. We will test with the Gate Foundation a new equipment called the Omni Ingester. I will not talk a little bit more about that. And what is the results? We realized that when we put the emptiers in competition with the call center, we decreased a lot the emptying cost. Without only the competition, the price decreased from 30,000 francs CFA to around 20,000 1,000 francs CFA, we decreased by 20% the cost of emptying only by making MTS into competition. This is a truck we purchased with the warranty full, and in Dakar you have this new truck doing emptying the pit, and this truck is get with this gate and this program. We realized also we need to change, and the main problem when we face appellants, we have several difficulties to balance the cost of our treatment plant, because this treatment plant cannot create enough added value in order to be profitable. It is why with the Gate Foundation, we are working to introduce a new equipment called the omniprocessor. And the omniprocessor will allow us to make some electricity, 300 kilowatt per hour. We can produce 28 cubic meters of drinking water. We can produce 20 tons of ash. And this ash can be also used in agriculture. And by operating this new equipment, we expect to create enough added value, enough revenue in order to balance the cost of the treatment plant. And we realize also, alongside the three existing fertilizer treatment plant, we need a fourth, because Dakar produces 1,500 cubic meters and only 1,000 go to the three existing fertilizer treatment plant. It is why, thanks to the Gate Foundation, we built right now a fourth fertilizer treatment plant in the suburb of Dakar in order to take the 500 cubic meter remaining. And we are something very important, a big achievement is right now, all the three existing fertilizer treatment plants in Dakar is operated by the private sector. On our delegated this, and as said in the beginning, these fertilizer treatment plants are not profitable. I lose so much money. And when you visit in the past this existing fertilizer treatment plant, you realize that the operation is not well done. But right now, since we privatize this fertilizer treatment plant, it is very, very nice to visit them, and they earn money right now. And every month, when us get some revenue from this existing fertilizer treatment plant, it means only by privatizing, we invest the trend. We invest the trend. From loss, we come to profit. It is something very important to do also. What are the main things? The first contract signed for the operation of the free fertilizer processing plant in Dakar. The customer management platform that will offer affordable service fees to poor households in Pekin and Nijoy. We not a project leadership in better pronouncing the board of director meeting. Improved relationship between ONAS and non-price sanitation service providers. Increase the visibility of FSM3 job profile. We have a database of 60,000 households applicants are being referenced. I forgot only to mention the main difficulties of the call center. We need in the beginning to reference all households in Pekin and Nijoy. And right now, ONAS know what's happened in each household. What are the main sanitary conditions? What is the size of the pit? Is the pit accessible? And we are also geolocalized all the truck in Dakar. Every day in our computer, in my office, I will see all the trucks moving in Dakar. And in my tender, I can say these trucks are not far from this household. The tender will concern only these trucks. It is something also very important. Network of partner network in innovative technology and business model is also existing. And we have a reference case in Dakar for many other people. Thank you very much.
Well, I think there's been very strong messages about connections between the technical side and different institutional aspects of policy on one hand. We heard about regulation, the role of the private sector, practical things like databases that need to be kept up, investment plans, lots of issues. Are there immediate questions you'd like to ask, issues you'd like to raise?
Hi, thank you. Why, thank you very much. Great presentation. I'm just really interested in this. You have a single entity for sanitation, and and that seems to be the enabler to get FSM really taken seriously. I just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, how that came about. Was that one sanitation champion who was able to create that structure and get that conversation going, get one entity talking about sanitation? And how did you get them to sort of move away from sewers and talk about FSM? That was 1996. That's at least 20 years in the making to get to where you are now. So it just seems that you can talk about how that came about and some lessons for others who sanitation is very mixed within lots of different institutions.
As I explained in my presentation, in the beginning, the government realized that since before 1996, sanitation was only taken charge in the political, in this regulation, the political government. We realized that all the funding, all the new projects were devoted to the water sector. And we realized that sanitation belonged to SONES. SONES was the main organization responsible for water and for sanitation. And when they run some new project, all these projects are devoted to drinking water. We realized in 1990, in 2000, when the World Bank, the government made the program sectorial water sectorial program, we realized that people who work on sanitation realized that they forward sanitation. A big part of the program was devoted to water. And the government said we need to stop and to think about how to improve the institutional arrangement of the water sector, water and sanitation. Okay. And it is why they cut these societies, they broke the society into third one devoted to drinking water and another one dedicated to sanitation. And it is something very important in the beginning because we have some executive thinking only about sanitation. When the donor is coming to Dhaka, they have one big donor is on us. And right now we realize this main investment was done in this. How we can arrive in this new organization, it is explain the success of Senegal on FSM management. It is just a political building. The government was very aware that we need to change this instrument arrangement in order to make things meaningful on sanitation. For me, the political buy-in in the political building is something very important. And I just want to add that fecal sludge, ONAS is not only responsible for fecal sludge management. ONAS is responsible for wastewater and fecal sludge. And in Senegal, 90% are on site sanitation and only 10% are on wastewater on collective sanitation. And ONAS deal with these two parts of sanitation.
Thank you. I see.
Wondering if you could comment on when you organized.
Could you just tell us who you are?
I'm Kimberly Arora from the Center for Policy Research in Delhi. I've been very interested in this example for a long time. Could you comment on when you brought the various private players together on your competition platform? Did you face any resistance from them to organize them into such a group? Because obviously they would have to lose profit. So if you did, and how did you overcome that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. The functioning of the call center cannot function without the strong involvement of the MPS. It is why the change we have in Senegal, we have a big association regrouping all the MPS existing in Senegal. We can say that 95% of MPS are members of this association group. And in the beginning, I forgot to explain that the MPS are part of this program. We are going to build this program. We are going to build this program with the Gate Foundation. The MPS sit together with us in order to define the main activities. And the first thing we did before we launched the call center is to train a lot and sensitize the MTS. We have less than 100 meetings every day in our office with the MTS in order to explain them that the call center is not something is not a competitor of the MTS. The call center is just a platform which can help you to organize the supply and demand. You can earn more money, you can reach more clients if you join the call center. And at the end, the MTS realize that the call center can help them with their job. And right now, in Dhaka, when you see the transfer, if each MTS puts the phone number of the call center in each structure, it just means that they realize that this call center can help them in the profitability of their activity. And when we discuss this, in fact, really, maybe we can share results in the FSM4, inshallah. We realize that MTS earn more money with this call center. This is why what I can say is the training and the sensitization of the MTS is a key issue to implement correctly this kind of.
I'm a bit worried. We started 15 minutes late, so it's going to be uncontrollable if I'm too liberal at this point. I hope the audience doesn't mind if I stop here with questions. Let's get the other speakers to say they're all going to join in, and maybe we're going to have a bit more of an interactive process right at the end of the session. So thank you very much. I saw 4 hands here. If you just write down the names, I'll fetch them and I'll make sure that you are prioritized. The next speaker is Lady Sirika from Indonesia, who's a sanitary engineer and who's been working with the World Bank Water Sanitation Program and the Indonesian government, specifically on issues of septic management. And she's going to tell us about that work.
I'm Rini Siregar. I'm going to present the finding from our research that was conducted last year. So this research carried out in 3 cities, and now we are going to do the pilot program to more additional cities. So we will do the pilot program to 6 cities. So our research focus on on-site sanitation system and willingness to pay for emptying in urban areas in 3 cities. So the research is part of the technical assistance. So the technical assistance is to assist government to identify technical and social factors to promote improve septic management, and also to develop pilot program for national scale up. So the scope is field research, and now field research in 3 cities, and then followed by pilot program in 6 cities. The respondent profile of this research is the low to middle income household. And we did the survey to the household, and also we did the focus group discussion with separation of men and women groups. And we also did the technical survey to the on-site system of the household. And also we did the interview with the key stakeholders from local government up to the local leaders. So we also working together with IWAS. This is a program. We have similar program with IWAS, and this is under the USAID funding program. So this is the site of our research and also pilot. So we conducted the research in 3 cities, and also we are going to do pilot in 6 cities. The finding, from the finding that almost household use the on-site system, although no agency or department responsible to manage the on-site system, and also no standard or guidance are available. So household, if they want to build their on-site system, they rely on mason experience and also knowledge, or they just copy the design and construction from their neighbors. Then also, not only community but also local government perceive that the on-site system is the private domain. And we don't have any regulation on wastewater in our research cities. And this is why we cannot not enforce what the good on-site system in each local government. So most of the household discharge their waste from the toilet to the on-site storage whenever performed, and 6% is directly discharged to the waterways, and 3% of households still defecate in the open. And most of the grey water from laundry, from showering, or from cooking is that discharged directly to the river or drain or sea. And almost 27% or 1/3 of the system had overflow pipe to discharge to the river or waterways, because they thought this is the good way to manage when the tank empty, or to avoid to be emptied. Lack of support and monitoring from the government, as you can see from all pictures. So no monitoring what is constructed. So if we can see here that in Indonesia, tangki septic is not really a static tank. So this is more the soak pit or leach pit, because most of the tank constructed unsealed, and as well as the base. As you can see here, most of household use 2 chambers of tank, but most are open base. So because of the small house plot and also no land available, so the distance between wells and also the on-site is very narrow. So 70% is less than 10 meters. And almost the similar percentage for the vertical distance from water level to the bottom of the tank. Although the water from well is used for domestic activity other than drinking. So if you can see here that the emptying is not a common behavior or practice among the household. So the household only request emptying when there is problem with their toilet, if their toilet is not functional, or maybe very slow flowing of the during flushings. When they said that the tank is already full, or water comes out from the toilet or even the tank, and or toilet block. 47% of the tank never been emptied, but for the household that ever emptied, you can see also here that the tendency is higher after the 10 years of using the tank. So here it's both female and male groups said that the emptying is more to technical, and they thought this is also related to the fixing the toilet or construction the tank. And male has dominant role in emptying, so requires making a request and set up the time for the emptying, and also supervise the sludge removal and also reseal, and also do the payment for the service. Here are the pull and push factor for the regular discharging. So from technical side, it's difficult to have access to the pit because most of the pit are under the tile, and if there is access available, there is only few can be open because they cemented or they put mortar on the top of the main hole. And also there is problem that about 1/3 of the tank had overflow pipe to the drain, so this tank will never full. From the social side, there are different knowledge and understanding among the participants. So some of participants said that the waste, if there is already in the ground, they will not harm anybody. And also, they never thought about what happened to the waste after they are using the toilet. But some positive respond that they are willing to pay if there is if the environment is cleaner or healthier. But some said also that almost 30% said that the never empty tank is a good tank, or the 70% said that never empty tank is a good tank. And also that some of the participants said that a septic tank is better than the soap. So we discussed the idea on the curriculum dislodging in every 4 years. So most of the participants said that they are interested in this idea because this is more affordable for them to pay in installment, and also they see this is the government support for the low-income people, and they also think that if this can be applied, their environment and surrounding can be healthier, cleaner, and more smart. And the household who ever empty their tanks show little interest to this idea. The willingness to pay in average is 0.4 to 0.7 per month. So the lower interest group said that they are not interested in this idea because they thought this is the emptying is only needed when there is a problem with their tank or their toilet. And they already have a big tank, so it's sufficient enough to empty and to be used in many years. And so far there is no problem with their existing, so why they want to be included in this program. So for those that are interested in this program, that they prefer to pay in monthly basis, and also prefer to pay to the trusted local government office or local leader, and also prefer to have a single billing with the water pipe or garbage collection fee. But also committee worry about the sustainability of this program because they said that perhaps the operator cannot do the emptying on time, and there is no rules or guarantee given by the local government, even though they already pay for an installment. And some houses which are located in narrow street worry that they will not be served because it's too far from the wider road. this is what we want to do with the cities. So with cities, there are about 6 activities that we want to be conducted, and also with the central government. So with the central government, we want to do the further research for the on-site system, and also provide guidelines for the improved slot-driven design, and also support national government to provide training material, dissemination material in national lab event. So this is what we want to do with the 6 cities. So more things, they are more ready with this pilot programs. And this is depending on their readiness and also what are available in each city, and also the capacity of each local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, 2 questions.
Thank you for your nice
Sorry,
presentation.
can I just ask the questions, keep the questions very short, we really have the time question.
Thanks. As per your research, local government institutions under central government is responsible for planning, implementation, supervision, and overall management of sanitation, mentioning FSM. But as you mentioned, government is not supporting well. I'd like to know why the local government institution is not capable of improving the overall sanitation as we need for the community.
Okay, I'm going to take the second question and you can answer both of them. Okay. I think this question of local government is something that in a sense is raised by the first question.
My question is that Indonesia was very famous for its kampung improvement program. Many years ago, bank was involved, a lot of other agencies. Now, given the kampung improvement program and a lot of work that happened, I'm surprised the situation that you described. So, were these the cities where there was no KIP, or was there a KIP but the KIP, that is the kampung improvement program, did not take into account the on-site?
Okay, continuity.
For the first question is about local government. In each city that we are, we did the research, there is no agency responsible for the on-site system, even though there is agency responsible for the system plan. So this is perhaps one of the like in the local agency arrangement. So I think that we want to support the city with this situation. So maybe our support to the city is to provide them with to review the tasks of the agency. So we will put it into one of the agencies that are responsible for sanitation, and also we want to support them with provide the local regulations. So we will input to their existing local regulation on wastewater if they have. Thank you. So for the KIP, that maybe happened about 20 years ago, and then the local government stopped, and that's what I heard. But perhaps Pak Suryanto can also is from the Batam, so maybe can respond to this question.
I think it keep kampung improvement is long time ago maybe, but this is in line with the program. I am from local government of Balikpapan. Of course, I give many thanks to WSP to support our policy for this research And then this year, we will have commitment to make regulation of regulation, and then to buy some equipment like tractor and so on, and then to stronger institution. Thank you.
Thanks. There'll be opportunities for more questions and comments later. I think we want to move to our next speaker, Joseph Ravi Kumar, from the Water Sanitation Program in India, South Asia, for the World Bank, and he's going to talk specifically about one of the case studies in India.
Thank you, Chris. This presentation was supposed to be made by the Principal Secretary from Tripura on their approach to septic management across the state, but unfortunately he was unable to come, and here I am trying to present what they intend to do. Just to get the context and then the strategy and what they've achieved so far. Yeah, Tripura is a state in the northeast part of the country in India. It's about 20 cities with a population of about 0.8 million, roughly about 20% of the population. And if you see the size of the towns, the majority of them are about between 10,000 to 20,000 population. The largest city is the city of Agartala, which is a million plus, and there they had attempted to do sewerage system under a government townships program which covered 10% of the state. Recognizing that those cost enormous amounts of money and also more than the capital grant, the operation and maintenance, the government consciously decided that there are other options to consider and therefore decided to look at on-site. The good thing about Tripura is that 98% of the households in urban areas have toilets and people use them, and a high percentage of households there are on on-site systems. And there currently does not exist any safe collection and treatment mechanism. The government had developed an urban sanitation strategy which looked at how to improve sanitation in the state, and also looking at issues of sewer system for small towns was a scale issue. The government of India had come up with an advisory on septic management, which around 30-40% of urban India are dependent on on-site systems. And just rough off back of the envelope, one calculation show that on-site systems capex is about a fourth of what is required for network systems, and O&M costs are roughly comparable. And that was one of the drivers for the state government to go forward and look at on-site systems for the state as a whole. And the government of India also had a scheme to support those cities in the northeast, and therefore they proposed one of the towns as a pilot, and then to learn from there and then how to take that forward. These are just some photographs of toilets and septic tanks in the city, which is Vishalgarh, which is just outside of Agartala. Now, the government came up with a strategy which was approved last year, and that sets out a time frame and a vision and time frame being that by 2017, the entire sanitation through on-site systems will be covered in the town. They also provided a framework for cities to engage on on-site sanitation, making it mandatory to clear and empty septic tanks, and also looking at the reuse and that the monies for operation would be coming through user charge. The principal governance on the strategy was either to emptying happen as and when needed. So from that, they needed to move to regular desludging so that you would then have an assured business to the private sector. They also wanted to look at a clustered approach because there were about 20 towns across, and therefore having 20 septic treatment facilities wouldn't make sense. So they said wherever possible they could cluster them together and that they would serve, and distances was a key factor in clustering. And they also looked at the whole question of devolution, in how giving cities a responsibility and to help them along and nudge them along and build capacity along the way. Look at sustainability of systems, and reuse was an important component in all of this. So roughly about 4 clusters covering 3 to 5 towns and about 3 individual treatment facilities. This is the kind of an institutional arrangement they're looking at, At the state level, you have the principal secretary along with his team, which will be providing directions, finances to the state. They're planning to constitute a state urban sanitation cell, which will be manned by experts who will be coming in, something like a project management unit, which will provide capacities to cities as they take on the responsibility for implementation. Cities would be vested with the responsibility for implementation. Of course, they would rely on the project management unit for technical support, rely on the state government for financial support, and rely on householder for collecting the charges. There will be a standing council, which is members of the elected body along with administrative officials who will be giving approvals and consent going forward. Where we are is the strategy has been approved by the government. A detailed project report for the first pilot has been submitted to the government of India. That's been appraised, and we have told that's just been approved. So in the next 4 to 5 months, they'll be going out to tender, and thereafter then taking up to scale in other towns. The idea is that by the fourth quarter of 2017 to address all towns in the state. And just this is where we are. I kind of said that. Happy to take questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there
Hi, I'm Asim from India Central University. My question is that the idea of cluster treatment plant is very good, but what's your take on the trip length increases, the user charge will also increase. So what's your take on that?
We had developed a spreadsheet model for the states, and therefore you could actually plug in distances. And when the cost becomes too prohibitive, then you say you can't probably cluster them. And that's why those clusters came about.
How would you ban or avoid manual scavenging and bringing other stakeholders in this whole process?
In the state, there is no manual scavenging. Whatever is happening is currently happening through mechanical trucks which are involved in the process. In terms of stakeholder consultation, when the strategy was prepared, there were intense consultation held at several cities as well as the state capital. Participants were asked and aired their views, and their views were taken into consideration before formulating the strategy. And in the pilot that I mentioned to you, there's been intense consultation going on with the elected official and the citizens at large and how to take this thing forward.
Thank you very much. I think we'll move on to the other speaker then now, and then after that we'll have a more open discussion. I'm asking Ian Ross to join us, who's from Policy Management, who's working with a number of other institutions like WEDEC to do fecal sludge management study for the World Bank Water Sanitation Program at the moment, and he's going to talk on some of the institutional political economies.
Okay, there we go. So the context of this work is that FSM3 is currently funding OPM and WEDEC to do some research in 5 cities. The ones listed there, I won't describe this in any more detail because there's some other sessions this week, particularly on Thursday. There's a workshop where we'll go into much more detail on this, so I'm just going to skim over it. Please do come along on Thursday. The main thing I want to emphasise is that the presentation today will draw on primarily the key informant interviews which have taken place in Dhaka and a survey of 720 households in that city. Okay, so what is political economy analysis? Now, I've got sort of 3 different bits of it that I'm going to explain. So firstly, it's about using tools and frameworks to try and explain how institutions function. So when I say institutions, many of you might think of a bank or a city corporation or a government, but we also have a broader understanding of what institutions are. So for example, you might think about the rules and norms which govern how we interact with each other. So these can be formal institutions, so things like laws. So in fecal sludge there might be a bylaw in a particular city about what you can do with fecal sludge, but there are also, more importantly, informal institutions which are more cultural. So for example, in one country you might have a particular attitude towards the reuse of fecal sludge in agriculture, in another country you might have a completely different attitude. So it's important to understand those informal institutions. The second bit of political economy analysis I'd like to talk about is how those institutions provide incentives to different stakeholders. And I think we all know what stakeholders means. It can be an individual, a group, a whole section of society. So in FECAL Search it might be some of these things, these different groups we want to think about. And finally, we want to think about how those stakeholders exert their influence. So when we say influence, it can be informal or formal power. So a city, corporation, or a municipality has certain formal power. They can make laws, but people don't always keep to those laws. Okay, so if in a city the FS bylaws are ignored, then in theory you have power, but in reality the influence is low. So it's important to think about how the informal and the formal are linked. Okay, and why do we do this? We want to support action. Many of us in this room are engaging in dialogue and reform in FECAL Search management. If we really want to understand how to make those reforms work, then we need to make sure they understand the underlying political context. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about Dhaka City. A bit of confusing having Mbaye talking about Dakar, me talking about Dhaka. I'll try and pronounce it correctly. So Dhaka, 9 million people, and it's really quickly changing. There's buildings going up all over the place. And 99% of people are currently using a toilet, so that's great. There's almost zero simplification in Dhaka. However, most toilets are now emptying to the drains, the storm drains, either directly or indirectly via septic tanks which are connected to the drains, and everything flows through. So what I want to emphasize here is the predominant market in Dhaka for FECAL Search, it doesn't really exist. There's almost no emptying services because nothing needs emptying. Everything goes to the drains or to the sewage network, which is pretty non-functional. So there's the 50% there from our survey directly connected and 20% indirectly connected to the drains. So I'm just going to describe a couple of tools that we might use in doing this PEA, political economy analysis. The first one is process mapping. So what we use this for is to understand how formal and informal moments in a process can happen and how they interact, and then how you can find entry points to try and influence them. Okay, so you want to think about who your stakeholders are in a given process. So let's say an important process in FSM is emptying of a pit. You want to think about who are the stakeholders. Might be some of those, the household, the manual empty, or the vacuum tow company who might offer a service, and the household will choose which service they want to use. How would they choose that service? They might look at the price. Maybe one service is cheaper than the other, but also they might be interested in how quickly they can arrive. So in Dhaka, you can get a manual emptier pretty quickly, but the vacuum tow, if you want to get that service, it might take a few weeks. So even if it's more expensive, you might go to the other option. And finally, look at the entry points for engagement. So these are some processes we could look at, and I'm going to choose the last one, which is on constructing a new building, because in Dhaka, with the rapid changes, that's quite an important determinant of FECAL Search services. So this is an example of what's supposed to be the formal process when you construct a new building in Dhaka. So what first happens is the developer applies to Rajuk for a permit. Rajuk is the capital development authority in Dhaka, so they basically they set building regulations, they enforce, in theory, building regulations. So once you've applied for your permit, then Rajuk is supposed to review that and then talk to DWASA, which is the utility, about connections. And also the city corporations in Dhaka who provide small bore drains and so on. And once all that's gone through, then Rajuk is supposed to approve that construction. Then the developer, with a bit of paper, they construct the building, and they're supposed to build septic tanks and make sure they're not connected to the drains. And then Rajuk inspects that, and finally everybody moves in, and then when their septic tank is full, they arrange for emptying. That's what's supposed to happen. In reality, however, Rajuk often doesn't actually consult the city council or DWASA utility about this, so they would just go ahead anyway. And secondly, the developers often connect those septic tanks directly to the drains, so there is really no real containment because all the sludge just goes directly through the tank and onwards. While Rajuk is supposed to enforce and inspect, they don't have enough staff to do that, so often inspection doesn't really happen. And finally, the occupants are supposed to empty that sludge, but in reality they never need to because it never fills up. Everything just goes straight through to the storm drains. So entry points, if we want to influence this process, we map the process, informal and informal. If we want to influence that, we might want to improve the application scrutiny, involve DUASA and the City Council in that, and also we want to try and help Rajuk improve their inspection. The second tool I want to look at is stakeholder analysis. Okay. Here you want to identify stakeholders' interests and incentives and try and understand why people act as they do. I'm just going to rattle through this to meet it actually. The main point of this is you're going to, if you look at the diagram, you want to map influence, so how much power, informal or formal, these stakeholders have, and also the interest that they have. So if people are very powerful and very in favour of your intervention, they might fall in the top right-hand bracket. So you might want to keep them satisfied. They're your friends, they're powerful, and they like what you're doing. This is if you're reforming FSM services. But these guys, they have no interest because if they're left in the centre, then they're maybe opposing the reforms. Okay, so if they're opposing the reforms, but also they're very influential, they're a problem for you because they're trying to block you. Okay, so this is an example for Dhaka. So again, we've got the same diagram, influence up here and then interest down here. So these people, the property developers, if you want to reform FSM in Dhaka and get some proper containment and emptying services going, then these guys are going to oppose you because they will save money by not having proper containment, by not building proper septic tanks. So you need to be careful of them, you need to know that they're going to oppose everything. Whereas Rajuk and the city corporations here, they're moderately in favour, but they're also quite powerful, so they're your friends. Next, you might want to consider, down here you've got quite low influence, the mechanical emptiers, as I said, almost zero market, and the sweepers who do some work. They're very much in favour of reforming this because the more containment there is, the more work there is for them. However, they're very low down on the power scale. And finally, this is the kind of bottom left corner. The households are important, but they don't really care what happens. They just want to have the minimum cost for themselves. Yeah. So this is an example of how these approaches can really help in actually thinking and working politically, and actually, when you're doing an FSM intervention, making sure it's effective. So in Indonesia, there was this recent project which finished a few years ago, which was to help design city sanitation strategies, and that resulted in a 300% increase in municipal finance for sanitation, which was great, but it wasn't always working that well. So early on in the project, they realised they had a problem. The lead ministry for the project was Bappenas, which is the planning agency in Indonesia, and they were the lead with the World Bank rather than the Ministry of Public Works, who traditionally lead on urban sanitation. So they had a problem where these guys in the Ministry of Public Works were less keen on the project and were basically blocking it. So after a while, the team involved did some political economy analysis. They sat down and worked out what was going wrong, and they realised they needed someone who could really help them advocate for this reform. And not necessarily a sanitation person, but someone who knew the Ministry of Public Works and knew those informal networks, those informal institutions, and was able to engage with them informally. So it wasn't kind of big meetings and like this. It was more going for breakfast, going for dinner. So the lessons are that if you want to have effective change, you really want to think about how things work in reality, and not necessarily the top sanitation expert, but someone who can actually work those meetings. Okay, and we may feel like that's obvious, but these guys spent a year trying to do it and it didn't work. So I mean, it's always obvious after the effect. Okay, so here's my last slide of conclusion. So I've given you a very brief taste of what political economy analysis is, and my sort of call would be that anybody can use this. It's not rocket science, and often some of the stuff might seem quite obvious, but what you need to do is make sure there's a shared understanding. So you and your colleagues who are working on this want to sit down and try and make sure you really understand what's going on with the different institutions. You don't have to use all the tools that are available. Secondly, it's good because it helps you focus on the informality. Okay, so there's a lot of informal processes in FSM, as we know. A lot of it's under the radar. So using these tools can really help you focus on that. And finally, it can really help you improve your programs because it helps you avoid barking up the wrong tree for potentially for years. While you could have, if you'd done the analysis a bit earlier, you might have seen why that wasn't a great idea. So finally, the results of the study will be out in the autumn across those 5 cities, and then hopefully we'll have some broader lessons for FSM, political economy out of that, as well as the other things. Please come on for this.
Let's take the 2 questions for Ian and then I'll look at the one over there.
I'm Nina from the Ministry of Public Works in Indonesia. I only have a very short question. It's just to clarify. Can you explain further about the statement of Ministry of Public Works still incooperative after 1 year of FSM report? Because for Balikpapan City, the central government budget is quite big from the 10 or 15 years ago. This is only the question. Thank you.
I'm going to take both questions. There was someone else. I thought there was someone over here. Any progress in the back there?
In an excellent presentation, I'm a big fan of political economy analysis, and I think it's an excellent example of how social scientists can really contribute to what most people think of as an engineering problem, but it's really a much more complicated problem. Having said that, I wonder if you can help me articulate in sort of political economy analysis terminology. We heard in one of the keynotes this morning how in city after city after city, where a small percentage of the city might be connected to a sewer system with a treatment plant, 5%, 10%, nevertheless 90% of public financing was going to that, as opposed to 10% for the 90% of the population who had on-site sanitation. From my perspective, that, which somebody didn't really touch on, and that's my great question, is the issue of economic interests. Not necessarily rent seeking, but sort of the power of the more powerful who are seeking profits and better opportunities. And how do you get that? Because a lot of your sort of approaches is more about better rationale on work stuff. But how do you deal with like more powerful economic issues?
Okay, thank you both questioners. On the Ministry of Public Works, what I can say is that's what I've read. I haven't actually. So maybe Isabel could add slightly more on that later through the question. But what I understood from the report which I read on that was that it was early on in the project, 2006, 2007, when the Ministry of Public Works was not so much in favour of this approach with Bapenas in the lead and city sanitation strategies, but over the course of time, it did sort of become more of a shared understanding of what to do. The guy's shaking his head, so maybe we can pick this up in the question.
Is that on the center? Okay.
Sorry, this is very important thing. I'm Chandra Sekolah. I'm from Ministry of Public Works and Housing, Indonesia. Okay, the first thing, I think my colleagues already clarified you for the statement, and the other, we want to clarify that the statement is Bapenas lead the Ministry of Public Works. You know, this is a collaboration in internal our government. Bapenas has roles to planning about the sanitation program, and Ministry of Public Works have the role to implement technical implementation. And also we have cooperation with our colleagues in Ministry of Health. Joint implementation together, and I think this is not dominant institution. This is collaboration internal in our government.
Okay, so on Eddie's point, how can we explain why so much funding goes on sewers when in most cities there's less than 10% sewerage? And that's really a difficult question. I mean, I pointed to two principal answers to that. I mean, I suppose that the first answer would be around the fact that most of the institutions that deal with these problems are staffed predominantly by engineers who all throughout their education have, which for the people in charge now was predominantly in the 1970s and 80s. And at that time, sewage was the dominant paradigm for urban sanitation. And so people would still want to apply that in their everyday work, and it's very much what they think is the solution. So I'm not an engineer, I'm an economist, I can't necessarily identify with that, but that's one determinant of what I see happening. Another one I'm not saying that FSM isn't engineering, but it's less kind of sexy as building a new sewer network. The second thing I think would be the sort of rent-seeking point, and how, I mean, in a lot of countries that we're talking about, if you're going to be constructing a very capital-intensive project, with lots and lots of different contracts, there are more opportunities for rent-seeking than there would be for a very decentralized fixed service management type approach. So that's definitely part of it as well. I think we can probably talk about this a little bit more in the Q&A, because I'm sure other people in the audience have other ideas on why there is this disconnect between on-site sanitation being so predominant, but then sewers getting on money.
Okay, thanks. Now, I think, let me just remind you where we are on time. We started 15 minutes late, we ended 1 minute late. So we've got 14 minutes if you want them. If you were really desperate for lunch, we can stop now, but I suspect you want the 14 minutes. So let's go. Okay, there's a hand over here.
My name is Geeta Pokulam from ADB. I'm actually very glad to make this presentation because I'm the project officer for the Tripura project from ADB. So while in Northeast we find some takers, our stakeholders, not just the government, the public at large, wanting some intervention on FSM. Generally, where I find we get stuck is governments asking us, where is the comparable cityscape data? I mean, I'm glad you put up some numbers on CapEx and OpEx, but we always, for all of you actually, I mean, this is really where we start. As you say, in our cities, which we co-fund with the government, I work largely in India, it's all sewage. I mean, for various incentives, as Ian was also describing, it's visible, big store pipe in the middle of the city, even if it captures 10%, but that's really development. So stakeholders, public at large, don't want any lesser scale intervention. And to show it's not lesser, it's more appropriate, is where we're struggling because we don't really have a city scale comparable data to show, here is your OpEx, here's your CapEx, and it really will solve your problem. Another notion we find always struggling with is they think it's temporary. They think, oh, as soon as we get money, we will do the sewage. This is for the time being. So if we can have a pool of data where we put together and use that as a tool to convince the stakeholders, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, so Chari.
With regard to the cost comparison of on-site system versus reticulated system, you said it's about 1/4 of the cost indicated using HPEC data and other such sources. Now this on-site system, does it include individual investments being made by the households, or it's a system cost for the fecal sludge management? Because there is a private investment that individuals are making. When you did this comparison of, does it include real cost?
A question for gentlemen from ONAS. I think it was very interesting in terms of the competition amongst the private players that you were trying to do. But my question is whether that is the kind of competition that you have, or you are sort of enabling, whether that is the right kind of competition, or whether you can have a very different kind of competition market through maybe a zonal kind of program where you have different contracts for each zone in Dakar, and you have a more scheduled cleaning service. The reason I am asking is is that your major point was achieving a better service and at a lower cost. And it is quite likely that if you have a different market structure than the one that you are promoting, it will be beneficial both to the privatized as well as to the household. But it will need a major role to be played by owners in facilitating that kind of a structure.
Thanks,
You may want to think.
Thank you. Just behind Mira's hand. Just there.
This is Alexi Morcrett from Practical Action. I work on markets, so I'm also very interested in the market structuring. Two basic questions. What are you seeing as a result of the competitive bidding? Are you seeing certain companies get a larger market share and other companies dropping out? Or are you seeing most companies benefiting from the bidding system? And secondly, you talked a lot about competitive bidding with regards to, I believe, companies with trucks, so this is mechanical emptying, but you showed a picture of manual emptying. I'm interested, what's the role that is played by the manual emptiers? Are they engaged in some way in this bidding process? Are they engaged in some way, or are they finding themselves being brought out? So, but I'd echo the point, this is really interesting hearing this case study because it's a very different way of structuring the market compared to zonal, which seems to be something we hear quite a lot about.
The objective of our program is to make manual emptiers disappear. In 2015, the government thinks we cannot accept people going inside without. This is the main goal. But we realize that we have several employees, manual employees, who work in the past in this system. And the objective is to say how we can decide these manual employees into the new organization. This is why, with the privatization of the existing construction plant, we hire, the government hired some manual employees in the operation of this plant. Can we realize that we try to categorize manual employees, and we realize we have the big part are non-professional. The big part that's just manual emptying. They are Muslim, for example. Out of work, they are emptying it in order to improve their revenue. This guy doesn't interest the project very much. But we can find some professional manual employees who work every day in data activities. For this guy, we try, for instance, with the public investor, we want to implement in Dhaka, for example. The public investor is the kind of equipment who can separate solid and liquids at the household level. When we separate solid and liquid, what we are thinking about that, the liquid can be in some place, and the money employees can be higher, and they can sell this water coming from this kiosk, and they can get some revenue from that.
Okay, thanks. You kind of quickly on the second point?
Yeah, the second point is, what is the, what we can organize the consensus in order to, maybe you can precise.
Okay.
Maybe you can start it.
Okay.
Yeah, Professor Chari, the cost includes the cost of collection and cost of treatment. But if I had the cost of septic tank, that probably will maybe go up by another $100, but it's still cheaper than network systems. And regarding your question on whether we have examples at scale, probably not in India, but globally in other places things have worked, and currently WSP is engaging, looking at what has worked globally successfully and trying to articulate what will be relevant for India, and hope to have that out in the next 6 months.
So related to the two separate points which were made about one about city scale comparable data OpEx and CapEx, and about the question from Ravi about does it include household expenditure. I think this is really important because when we look at data on costs and expenditure, it's really important they're comparable. And I would draw attention to a new, or relatively new initiative by WSP called the Economics of Sanitation Initiative, which Guy Hutton from WSP is trying to collect lots of data on this kind of thing and demonstrate how the different bearers of costs, who bears the cost, households, city governments or others, does have a big effect on how the finance looks. So it's quite important when you present cost data to understand who's actually paying for things. And I think Guy on Thursday at the workshop, which I'll mention again, Guy is going to be making a presentation on the ESO toolkit, so that would be very useful to take a look at.
Okay, I think we can take a few more. You've already asked one, haven't you? Okay, why don't you go for it?
For Marini, about the research, it was interesting to know that 72% were interested on paying, which in fact, normal tendency is people would tend not to pay for the intake. So were there any prior information drive to the people so they become interested in paying an intake? Were there any prior program like informing them about the benefits of MT or not?
Okay, good. There's a question there in the same vicinity.
My name is Rajesh, I'm from India. My question is to Dr. Mai. You were mentioning that in Qatar, the surface management practice is from loss to profit. So I would like to know which component of the value chain has contributed really towards that. So one thing what I know is, there is a good market for the collection, the conveyance, the dispatching part, but the treatment I see very often it's a big challenge. So are you talking entirely the surface management is profitable or only the collection part?
Amadou Gueye from Senegal. My question related to the political economical analysis. And you, in your conclusion, you say the PAEA was a tool for protection in the informality. I want to know how the informality helped to do the practice to better manage the factor assessment in the university.
Thank you. Someone in this block?
I'm Shikha Shrivastava from Practical Action India, and my question is for Mr. Ravi Kumar. I would like to know, you mentioned about the DPR being approved in Tripura. I would like to know who is the agency responsible for preparation of the DPR and who will be the implementing agency, and if it's the state government agency, do you have in the project plans for capacity building of the state government?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Muid from WaterAid, and I would like to compliment to Yandos because I have come from Dhaka and you have mentioned the ICT for the FSM award. Well, this political economy is very much important to consider in Dhaka city, but you have mentioned many stakeholders involvement here. One part is important that you mentioned that some sort of flow diagram about the responsibility of value and others. So who is doing what? That is the critical part of this FSM before developing this FSM framework. And the good point is, I am just supplementing about your presentation that the Dhaka FSM framework is now under development, and it will be hopefully it will be in the formal way of acceptance by the end of this year or middle of this year. So that's the only compliment or addition I would like to add.
I suppose I would say that traditionally when people think about institutional analysis, when people want to talk about institutional arrangements, you might only say, okay, well, ONAS is in charge of this, and then the Ministry of Public Works is in charge of that, and this is how it's going to work. But if you were focusing on the informality, that can really help you dig deeper into what really happens, because the formal institutions don't always operate as it says on paper. So I don't know if I'm answering your question effectively, but the point is that if you focus on the informality, then you can try and get underneath what appears to be happening and really understand what actually happens. I don't think there was a question from the gentleman from Water Trade. I mean, I would just say that yes, the Bureau framework has been developed from we'll look for data that looks good on paper. I think we'll see if it's implementable. In fact, the main interesting thing coming out of that is it's proposing a tax, a sanitation tax, and also a payment to emptiers to dispose of their sludge safely. So we'll see if, I think that's a great idea, we'll see if it actually works.
Thank you. The objective is to improve the profitability of the whole value chain. At the transport component, we realize that at the transportation component, we realize that when we try to understand the OPEX of the NDS, we realize that maintenance costs represent 12% of their activity. We realize also that police harassment represent 8%. By removing the truck, we realize that we can decrease the maintenance costs of the NDS and they can earn more money by reducing the expense on that. By certification, by giving the license to MTF, we realize we can fight against police harassment because we involve the police authority in this process. And right now, trucks, MTFs will be considered as a health emergency. Nobody stops them and they can reduce this police harassment. This is why we want to improve the profitability. In the treatment side, the objective is to optimize the function. By the government operation, we realize nothing was optimized. We realize when you need 1 day library here, you have 4 day library. And when the private sector is coming, they make a clear step in order to have the right person at the right place. And by optimizing the hiring of the personnel, they can improve also the profitability of the infrastructure plan. We realize also that any marketing strategy was done by owners in order to sell the byproduct. But right now, we realize that the private sector signed several contracts with several companies in order to sell these byproducts. And the objective...
Thanks.
I just want to finish with that. We want to go further. We're going to move forward with the omniprocessor. And with the omniprocessor, by implementing this omniprocessor in our Westward, in our data treatment plant, we produce electricity, we produce drinking water, we produce ash, and we have enough items in order to increase the added value coming from the data treatment plant. And we can pass on these benefits to the whole system in order to reduce the cost of the entire activity.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you on your question. 72% of the respondents show their interest to the regular discharging. That we provide them with information. What is the regular discharging? What plus and minus of the regular discharging? That what is they should pay before the service. So their thought is more on economic system. So because small income is more affordable for them to pay rather than waiting until the problem has happened.
The appraisal was done by the Ministry of Urban Development and the DPR was prepared by WSP. Implementation will be done by the state government, by the city government, and capacity building support will be extended by the state government to the city government.
Thank you to the speakers and to the audience that really participated. I'd like to thank everyone. I mean, there are lots of people that probably leave frustrated because they didn't get the first question. Some couldn't get it to a third. So thank you very, very much. It was, I think it was a lively discussion in a limited time. Big things that I think we're taking forward. There's an issue about dedicated institutions, whichever functions we're talking about. Policy, implementation side, regulation came up quite a few times. I heard a lot about data, access to data, reliability of data, and on the political economy side, just a sense, I think when you heard him talk, most of you could probably hear this is stuff that you're already doing. But I think what I hear coming out of this is maybe one should sit back a bit and think about the political economy, not just barge in there. We tend to just go for the most influential person, and maybe it's more useful to understand who else in the system can make things happen and not happen. There was a considerable interest in markets, and maybe this is why we say political economy and not only politics. And I thought, I mean, that's obviously hugely relevant in this field where there's a dynamic private sector that's already there, but it's just waiting to get the gap to do things in many cases. And it seems to me that we need to understand better the markets, who's going to compete, how do you make it fair, and how do you get to the customer. And that's maybe the last point I want to say. The researchy type of issues that came up in the course of the discussion, I felt were interesting to me because they raised the issues about what does the customer want. And I think that's the issue that seemed to be hugely absent in this whole debate. Whether it's public or private sector, the reason that fecal sludge management has not been addressed is because no one cares really much about what those customers think and want. And maybe that's one of our major challenges. That's not, there were many more things in a rich discussion, but thank you very much for your participation and to the speakers in particular, and for helping us to manage a difficult time.
Okay, we're right on schedule. Third paper, Philemon Adira, and that is FSM in Botswana.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Philemon Adira. In 5 minutes, I'll be trying to talk to you about the situation of fecal sludge management in Botswana. Since 1976, the government has been programs that are related to sanitation. The National Rural Sanitation Program was done to provide more than 30,000 fecal latrines in the country. And this provision of sanitation improved access to sanitation in the country. And also in urban areas, we had the Major Village Infrastructure Program that was aimed to provide waterborne sewage system to the major villages. So this program was meant to reduce the number of fecal latrines that were provided. And that resulted in about 75% access to improved sanitation in urban areas. That is the Major Village Infrastructure Program. As you can see, this is the improved sanitation in the country, and this is the urban areas. They have 77.9%, and rural areas 49%. So there is that disparity in provision of sanitation. And these are the policies that are related to fecal sludge management, and they are housed in different government departments. And the problem with these policies is that they are not really fully enforced. And if they are enforced, there is some kind of leniency in enforcement. And this is the sludge management practices from generation, as you can see, which is the big latrine normally, up to landfills. The problem here is that when the sludge gets there, then there's a problem because we think everything is done. But the landfills also have got a problem, so we need to reduce the amount of waste going in there. So we need to rethink what we should be doing with the sludge. And these are the costs for sludge emptying. As you can see that the water utilities corporation, service provider, is it's very cheap actually to dislodge these big latrines. And for private companies, as you can see, is about 70 US dollars. And the problem with emptying process is that the people themselves have to go and pay for the emptying, and then after paying, they have to add in water in big latrines and then stir the contents, which is quite a problem for them because they don't want to deal with such kind of issues. And we propose, and thanks to the Queen Municipality in Durban, South Africa, that they developed the Radepa system. So the Water Utilities Corporation is intending to use this system so that the sludge that can actually be produced from that system can be beneficial, and the cost probably will increase because of the quality of sludge that will be coming out of there. So as you can see, right now, because of the quality and the services that are there, the 10-ton truck costs only $3, around $3 for the treated sludge, which is not of very good quality. So in conclusion, the penalties that are embedded in the policies are very lenient, so they need to be looked at, and the cost recovery should be seriously thought, and the fiscal quality standards as well should be looked at, which is the end of the project.
We're doing really good on time. Outside open, and it's sludge management services and rural knowledge.
Thank you very much. We are planning a new project on fecal sludge treatment, so that's why we did a formative research to see the situation there. So I'm presenting the findings. In all, the population is not huge, only 6.5 million, and of which 70% people use some form of toilets. And most of the rural toilets are outside sanitation. They are into big latrines and they need periodic emptying to keep them running. So the formative research was, we interviewed 1,100 people, randomly selected from 25 villages in 3 districts in work. And we also did interview with others. So in those areas, 76% of toilets were constructed over the last 5 years when we started working in those areas. And most of the toilets are constructed by the households without any subsidy. The 6% households which receive subsidy, they receive in the form of some rings, some construction materials. That's not very huge. But we asked people whether they needed to empty. 13% people, they already had to empty their pits, and most of them had their pit full, and 86% people had to empty their pit to keep their toilets running. But you can see the other little things. 2% people have returned to ODF. So to us, having a proper emptying service is very important to keep the toilets running and to have the program sustainable. There is private emptying services there and they are growing, but you can see the cost is too high. It is $50 per emptying episode, which means that it is the cost of construction of the substructure of a toilet, and people are not happy with it. Most of the people say that the cost is too high, so they cannot afford it, which also allows that people may go back to open defecation if we cannot have a proper emptying services there. Most people know what they can get the services, but they are not aware about those things. So there is no preparation. When their pits is full, they have to do something, but they cannot afford it. Most people do not know where the sludge is disposed, we observe the sludge is usually disposed in the public, in the open water bodies which harm them. And people are not aware about the health hazards of randomness. But people want to use sludge treated. They replied that most people are interested about biogas as cooking fuel or dry sludge in the cooking fuel and soil conditioner. But we also verified this data with the people through which we implement our program. And the first two things, biogas in the cooking fuel and dry sludge as cooking fuel, is not something that's going to work. So what we shall be doing that we shall be working on making sludge as a soil conditioner. As I mentioned earlier, the private sector, they are providing NT services and their growth is potential. This company started about 4 years ago, and by now, 2 of them have 4 trucks. They started with a very small one. So their financial viability is very high there. So in conclusion, we want to say that the government needs to define its role, how they can regulate the private sector so that the price doesn't go high and doesn't go beyond the affordability of the people. No service or unaffordable service means that people will return to OD. So to have the sanitation program sustainable, we get proper self-management and different options. One of the potential way to get the prices down is probably the resource recovery through research. Thank you very much.
KJ Nath is next. A cost-effective eco approach for fecal sludge management.
Good afternoon. The fecal sludge management of a country would be as good as the wastewater and human excreta disposal system. In India, presently, leaving apart the medium class megacities, the most of the urban population, about 72% of the urban population lives in class 1 and class 2 towns. And where only 13% of the wastewater is collected by the sewage and sewage treatment system. So the rest is depending on either septic tank or pit latrine. You can see that in septic tank from toilet it goes to septic tank, then by the tanker it goes to the field, either drainage where it is composted with solid waste, or it could be drying beds. On the other hand, you can see the conventional sewage treatment plant where the sludge is taken care of by sludge digester, thickening, stabilization, dewater, and sludge to land disposal. This shows some of the present situation in the sludge type bed trenches. They are not managed properly. There are huge health hazard to the workers. There is environmental pollution. Now, Sulabh system of double pit 4 flush toilet addresses to all the problems. It has 2 pits. One is used at a time, so that when one pit is full, you can leave it for 1 year, and when it becomes totally pathogen free, completely safe for manual handling by the workers, and it is good manure and soil conditioner. Sulabh has also developed another technology for isolated population or community toilet complexes, where from the sludge goes to the anaerobic digester, where from biogas is generated, which is used for generation electricity like clean cooking and body warming. The effluent goes to a treatment plant, sedimentation, filtration, aeration, and carbon absorption, followed by UV radiation, where the effluent is totally safe for disposal into public their system or rivers or any water body. On the other hand, from the digester, the sludge could be collected into sludge pits or drying beds or land treatment. Thank you. In case, because I could not elaborate further, but in case you have got any queries, we can answer your question.
Okay, and our last speaker of this session, Atijaya Vanich.
Good afternoon. Today I will present on behalf of Dr. Aditya. Get from our poster view talking about the participatory planning in development of the ecosystem management strategy for this case in Thailand. I think that all of you may know about the SWOT analysis, and in this photo we show you about the methods, like a systematic method in order to promote about the strategies. Firstly, for the method, we will invite the stakeholder from the central government, also the local government who will take care in the people sludge management, and after that we will have like a questionnaires and also interview with them in order to prioritize the factors in terms of the SWOT. And after that, we will work like the matrix as show you in this slide. We will identify about the five important factors for each part, and after that we will try to matching between about the internal and external factors. And after that we will propose and discussion in terms of the strategy for the central government, the local, and also for the private sectors. For output of this research, we would like to propose like a systematic method for the SWOT and the task analysis in order to I think that in order to help us not miss the critical points or critical factors from discussions. Okay, thank you.
I know you're all full from lunch and kind of trying to stay awake, but how about the speakers? Yeah.
No fecal sludge management service means people will go back to open defecation. So sustainability for sanitation service depends on successful fecal sludge management service.
Okay, do we have another?
Technology choice needs to be relevant to the context.
I am from India, environment engineer. I want to say that what are the sludge disposal standards in countries where when we dispose the digested sludge, and what are the standards that can be followed either from WHO or by other any countries? You are talking about the disposal of the sludge, fecal sludge. What are the standards for disposal or treatment?
What are the standards for disposal? Why don't we just open it up for questions? We actually have another 8 minutes left of the session. So do you have questions for any of the speakers?
Hello, my name is Placenta from South Africa. I have questions to Sujaya. Okay. When you, in your model, you mentioned impact of the system. Is it specifically on one dimension, for example, environmental impact, or do you look at a whole range of impacts, like economic impact, social impact? That was one question, and the other one also to you. Do you have sufficient data to support that, or is it one of those cases of bad, like best available data?
The first question, yes, we are looking at a range of indicators, which would be, right now we have, as you know, this is a proof of concept, so what we put out there right now is access, coverage, environment, health and water, and also cost and resource requirements, like land, energy, water. So that is what we have now, but I'm open to suggestions on indicators, and that goes back to your second question, which is so in the back end of the model we have the system parameters. So what does the system need? So from our discussion with a lot of experts, data has been, yes, best knowledge, and that's what we have right now. I would say, it is about getting better with the data, and this decision support tool has the ability that if you get better data, you can source it and just write, just fill up a data entry sort of a table. So it's a live system which can be updated and gets better when you have better data.
Hi everyone, my name is Aldi from the National Planning Agency of Indonesia. I would like to address my question to Mr. Odelile from Botswana. It's very impressive when I hear about your presentation, you kind of provide 30,000 toilets to rural inhabitants in Botswana. And it actually impacts, and we can see the results, like 100% increase in rural access of sanitation from 22% to 40-something percent. My question would be, what are the accompanying measures of when you provide those 30,000 toilets? I mean, because if I'm not mistaken, my colleagues here from Indonesia could correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that we have in Indonesia had the same program for providing toilets to our population, but it doesn't really impact on the access because the sustainability is not, there's something wrong with the sustainability. So that doesn't really, the provision of the toilet doesn't really result in access. So could you provide us with more information on how you were doing the provision, accompanying measures, whether probably it's education or advocacy or kind of stuff? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that question. Actually, the access is not 100%, actually. Okay. Yeah, this is what the government was doing in order for them to provide such kind of systems. So, when they looked around for people who needed sanitation systems and registered them, and then provided them with the substructure of the pillar tree, lined with bricks, and then they constructed the slab on top, and then they gave the substructure for the users to build the superstructure. So in each and every plot, whenever everyone is applying for a plot to build a house, the government will first of all go there and build such kind of substructure. So that is how they manage to access such a number of people. I don't know if I answered.
Correct.
I'm from FSM3 Bangladesh. I just asked one question to Abdul. You mentioned that 2% of the people went back to open education because of no FSM services there. What are the other reasons? And where it placed? Is it the number one or where it placed?
86% people, they emptied their pits when they become full, right? And some people shared and some people reconstructed new toilet, but only 2.some%, they had to go back to open defecation because they could not afford the service. Right? But, well, this is 2% of the 13%, right? For those, the toilets are full. But my point here is that if we don't provide an affordable service there, well, this will grow, right? That's why I'm saying that no service or unaffordable service means the sanitation program is not sustainable.
And this will probably be our last question.
I'm Norio Saito. I'm from Asian Development Bank. I have also questions to this Laos case. Very interesting presentation, thank you. And you mentioned that the private sector is emerging to provide FSM services. But you also mentioned that it would cost about $50 to empty the septic tanks. So does that mean that people can really afford to pay that $50 to the private sector? That's the first question. And the second thing is, after the private sector gets fecal sludge, does the local government monitor how that sludge is going to be treated or disposed of in the end? Thank you.
To your first question, for cultural reason, Lao people, well, there is no manual emptying there, right? Lao people just doesn't like to do it. So if the toilet is full, they just go back to open defecation in the forest or wherever they can, right? So people have to empty their pit if they want to get it. So those who have toilets for 2-3 years, they are habituated to use it, and if they can afford, they just empty it, otherwise not. For your second question, there is no institutional responsibility defined yet, right? There is just nobody. These empty trucks, they are registered as trucks, they provide tax to the government, but there is no regulation per se to monitor them.
Okay, I think our time is up. Sorry, you will have to ask a little later, but thank you so much for being on time, group, and coming up with some really good questions. So the session is over.